at that emotion.
Around the outside. It's time to bring the action.
Yes, welcome back after an off weekend at Monster Energy AMA Supercross and the Super Motocross World Championship. Your insiders are here, Jason Weigandt and Daniel Blair, and we don't even have to hype this to get you back in the groove. Daniel, we have the closest Supercross title fight we've ever had in this stage of the season.
Yeah, co-red plates going into Glendale with 6 races to go, and the timing is perfect. Felt like we needed a little breath right there just to all kind of gain our footing, and now we will sprint towards the finish line. And then you throw a triple crown at Glendale, so what better way to come out of the break than do a triple crown with 2 guys, 2 red plates, and a tight championship fight to the finish.
Yeah, and not just any 2 guys. These are proven commodities. We know the strengths and weaknesses of Tomac and Webb. They're both 2-time champs. Webb mentioned at Seattle. We haven't really seen them both have good years at the same time. So to try to pick them apart and figure out who's not going to rally, you're splitting hairs at this point.
And when you talk to the Webb camp and the Tomac camp, they're well aware of which track favors which rider. They're playing the calendar. They're playing the board like we all are watching from the outside looking in. So these final 6 will be fun to break down week by week. But at the same time as that one winds down, another championship is revving up, the Pro Motocross Championship. And I don't know if you noticed during the break, Weeds, but they were doing some outdoor riding during the break, getting ready.
Yeah, some break. They actually were out there logging lots of testing motos for the Pro Motocross Championship. So that leaves us with a lot to break down on this week's show. It is time for our big interview. Strap in for bench racing extraordinaire. We have Davey Coombs, my boss over at Racer X, and also a big part of the Pro Motocross Championship. But we'll talk Pro Motocross in a bit. Let's just bench race about how awesome this Supercross season is, both with 2 Titans locked at the top, Lawrence Brothers dominating 250s, so many other riders trying to break through. It has been so fun to watch. I know you've been keeping your eyes on it.
Absolutely, Jason. I've been lucky enough to go to 4 or 5 of them so far. And I'll be coming to a few here in the stretch run. Who'd have thought that at this point in the season, you'd have Eli and Cooper tied in points, number 1 and number 2, both with red plates. And then, arguably the fastest guy has been Chase Sexton. He's just not fast at the right time, which is at the end of the race when they give out the results. I don't think that we've seen the best yet from Jason Anderson, let alone Christian Craig. And maybe the night strike again for Ken Roxon. And I think all those guys are going to go into this stretch run trying to be the spoiler between number 1 and number 2. So I can't wait to watch it. And it's been a wonderful season. I really thought we were in for the Eli Tomac, retirement parade the way the season started. And now, no, it's not been a parade, and no, he's not retiring.
Davey, I'll pivot to 250 indoors, and we'll start with a rider who we're seeing the last of in the class and some riders we saw the first of. I'll start with Jet Lawrence, his farewell tour to the 250 class. It's been pretty fun to watch. And then the new faces, Tom Vial, 2-time MXGP champion, and Hayden Deegan and their debuts. Just your thoughts on seeing this 250 class, the guy leaving and the 2 that just showed up.
I'll be honest with you. I think it's working out exactly the way I thought it would. I knew Jet would be incredibly tough. He's done nothing but improve since the first time I saw him at Loretta Lynn's. And it's continuous, and it's something to behold. I knew Tom Vial was going to have a challenge, we'll say. He's a great starter. He's going to be fantastic outdoors, but he's got to get through Supercross healthy. As far as Hayden Deegan goes, I've been watching that kid since I pushed him off the infield on a 65 at Loretta Lynn's. I know he's going to be good. I don't think that he's necessarily James Stewart, naturally talented, but I do think he's driven like a Carmichael-like athlete. The guy that impresses me the most so far, surprisingly, is Hunter Lawrence. I'm amazed at how much he's improved in Supercross because, when he first got over here, same thing happened, Daniel. He had issues with injuries that hurt him in the outdoors. But man, I've been looking at Clinton's stats, and they've been practically all even in 250 Supercross. They might not necessarily be racing against each other, but they're right there in the record books.
Let's stay with those same names. Hunter Lawrence, probably the favorite in the 250 class this summer. Tom Vial, again, two-time MXGP champion, back in his natural terrain and style of racing. How do you see that matching up with the guys like Justin Cooper, RJ Hampshire, and Joe Shimoda?
Those three guys you mentioned, we haven't heard a lot about. Obviously, Joe's been out hurt. RJ's, had some crashes and whatnot. Moseman, you count him in there. They've all got something to prove after not necessarily having a great Supercross season. But Hunter, Vial, Deegan, and Justin Cooper. I don't count Cooper's even having, done Supercross, even though he had, 3 or 4 really good, 450 rides. I think that Justin Cooper, to me, is the guy that I'd be thinking of as my favorite going into that opener at Fox Raceway. And as for Jet moving up, man, we were out at the Motocross of Nations last September and saw him, go straight up against Sexton, straight up against Ferrandis. I feel like he goes to the starting gate as a top 5 guy, maybe even a podium guy.
Man, so much to bench race about. We could probably have you on here for an hour. We'll get you on again. But anyway, thanks for the time, Davey.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
Well, race fans, with the introduction of the Super Motocross World Championships, we are now in a new world where stats and trends and data gets to be expanded and explored. Clinton Fowler, Fowler's Facts, is going to bring you more information on how we are bringing stats to you now with a combination of Supercross, Motocross, and the introduction of the Super Motocross World Championship Playoffs.
Super Motocross is the combination of Supercross and Motocross, not just a playoff. This is really important. We have 2 individual championships that combine to make a third, and we've added the playoffs to crown a single Super Motocross champion. Supercross equals stadium racing. Motocross equals natural terrain racing. Super Motocross is a combination of both. We also have 2 classes. The 450 class is the premier championship. These are the absolute best Super Motocross athletes in the world. The 250 class is the up-and-coming Super Motocross athletes starting their professional careers. Their ultimate goal is to graduate to the 450 Premier class. 450s equal the Premier class, 250s equals the up-and-coming athletes. When we look at the stats, we've got 6 measurements. Sounds complex, but it's really simple. For the 450s, the Premier class, we track 450 Supercross, 450 Motocross, and 450 Super Motocross, the combination of both of those. There's one exception from 1986 to 1992. The Premier Motocross Series was split into 2 classes, the 250s and the 500s. We include both of these in the 450 Premier class to keep the integrity of historical comparisons. For the 250s is the exact same with no exceptions. We track 250 Supercross, 250 Pro Motocross, and the combination 250 Super Motocross. There you have it, Super Motocross stats explained.
Okay, let's bring in the 30-second board. Hot topics within the sport. There's so much talk about this current points race with Eli Tomac and Cooper Webb. Now we're starting to miss the milestones. Hey, Eli Tomac, he's now tied for second all-time in Supercross win, Daniel.
Yeah, and he's playing with these guys' emotions. I feel like he hung Ricky out to dry for weeks and weeks and just dramatized it. And James was like, oh, man, come on, just get right through me. And he kind of did the same thing. He waited. Now he ties it up. So the question is, does he blow past it now, or does James have to sit there and deal with this week after week? And Jason, it was cool to actually hear from James as he acknowledges what Eli's doing, but of course puts the James Stewart twist and fun on it.
ET, congratulations from number 50. 50, you tied JS. You tied me. You're going to hopefully, go ahead and do it. Are you going to get another one? You got to wait a week before you get it. But congratulations from here. Bubba's World, seems like every time you win, you're breaking records. Next time you win, you'll be breaking a record. So congratulations. Welcome to the 50 Club, son. Hit it for him, Cole.
Suntan, next on fire.
Of course, James, in his way, makes it entertaining. And Weege, if he's going to pass James's record, he will do it in Glendale at a Triple Crown, where statistically that'd be his best odds.
Okay, let's talk about the wildness, though, that is Triple Crowns. You teased it on the top of the show. Tied for points is good enough. But we have very little data on any of the Triple Crowns, I feel, this year showing that anyone has an advantage or disadvantage. It has been all over the map in the previous runs in 23.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from the outside looking in, Tomac's your best statistically, but this season alone, Sexton won Anaheim 2, Webb won Arlington, and then you go back even in deeper history. Ken Roczen has swept a Triple Crown where? At Glendale. Anderson's won some Triple Crown races this year. Justin Barcia's been super fast all year. So as much as it may feel like a Eli Tomac racetrack win, like it should be easy, I feel the same way I felt every single race this year, which is I have multiple reasons to believe multiple people can win, and the Triple Crown is probably the reason for that coming into Glendale.
The other thing is the 250 class. We already know where that is. That's Jet Lawrence. We'll talk about his Triple Crown problems later. But let's just talk about Little Break when he got to go on a big bike, and he spoke about it at Seattle, what that experience was like.
Bike was great. It was funny on the 450. I think at Daytona I was very close to actually going racing, and I was excited, but I ended up testing from Monday all the way through the Thursday on the bike. So I was and they're all from like 10 to 5 days where the sunset would go down. So it was long days of just trying stuff, seeing what works with it, and kind of for more so my sake, I think, of learning the 450, learning its character and that stuff. And it was just, I always still wanted to do press day in that, but my Dazzy ended up just kind of pulling the pin, just going, no, you rode all week and long, hard hours. So it was just kind of more so just, just take the weekend off, have fun.
Do you love how the parents, and I heard the mom, by the way, weighed in that she didn't want him to race Daytona either. Do you love how the parents still have this much influence over Jet Lawrence?
Well, I feel I've done a pretty good job to this point, so maybe let them keep running the show. I don't know. It's been pretty good over there. Jason, last week during the off time, of course, I run into you in Southern California, of all places. KTM launched their new headquarters and their new race shop, and you got a chance to tour the entire thing. We got a chance to talk a little bit back and forth, but what were your thoughts overall walking into the new headquarters of KTM?
Well, the race shop is unbelievable, and everyone was in their place. Each team, each discipline has their office and their room. The only person I didn't see perched where he should be is you as the amateur team manager. Instead, they had you greeting people in the front, along with this Roger DeCoster guy. But the overall investment here is $53 million to build this campus. $53 million. That is a sign not just for the Peer Mobility, the parent company of KTM, but a sign to me of the whole industry, health, and investment in the future.
Yeah, sports in good spot. If you look at the numbers in the stadiums and on television and the investments by the manufacturers and companies, the sport is in a great position. And if you're Justin Barcia, you're probably in a great position too, Weege. Hearing that he's probably going to lock this deal down with Gas pretty soon. We assume that's going to happen, and that's off the back of like incredible racing over the last 3 or 4 rounds. Another rider who could win the Triple Crown if he can get a start, because the aggression, the speed, it's been right there with the best.
Yeah, actually, the only thing he doesn't have this year is the starts, which is normally one of his great assets. If he can finally solve that, could be good for a Triple Crown. A couple riders that don't need help with the starts. How about Seattle, the privateer power? Hunter Yoder on the Hartzilla PRMX machine, nailing starts all day long in the 250. And the start master, tank master KTM stock bike, Kevin Moran's nailing the whole shot and actually repassing Chase Sexton on the first lap of the main.
Well, that was the best part for Moran's, was you actually got passed in the second corner by the guy who is the known fastest guy in the class that you know is going to get you and he's going to pull away. Nah, you're just going to cut him off in the next corner and lead a little longer, get to the finish line, and then go over the berm. I think it was the coolest thing ever for Moran's. And then for Yoder, his heat race was a good start too. So that wasn't just a one-off good start. There's a trend over there with Hunter Yoder. So for those two privateers, getting that TV time, getting out front, doing it in the way that they can, which is getting the starts, was huge for them. And while that was an opportunity for them, there is a third championship waiting at the end of this thing, Jason, between Eli Tomac and Cooper Webb. 2-time champions, both in their own right, but that third one, it's right there with 6 to go, and they're tied up.
Yeah, and it's what we wanted to see, right? Because the last 4 seasons, they've split 2 titles between them. But I feel like you could easily point to each had a bad year while the other had a good year. And there's so much respect. We know Cooper Webb likes to play mind games. He gave the finger guns at Sexton and threw a little shade at him in the press conference in Seattle.
Yeah, it was a cool deal, and it was one of those things to maybe make him get out of whack and lose focus, and seems like it maybe worked.
I think they know at this point, they're veterans, they can't get in each other's heads. There's so much mutual respect from everybody watching, and then those two to each other. I think that just heightens this. They're 2 legends already.
So there's no chance Webb tries that stuff on Eli? Because
he'll try.
It worked. It's worked.
I do remember when we went to the 7-race swing in Salt Lake 2 years ago. He said, "Yeah, I'm trying. It's just not working, but I'm gonna keep trying to get in this dude's head." So that would actually be pretty fun to watch, at least the attempt by Webb. But that's the thing. I mean, nobody has this steely-eyed ice look like Tomac these days. It's hard to get inside any of his thoughts.
You try to get in his head, you might end up getting in your own. So that's a dangerous game to play, which is going to make these final six that much more fun.
Okay, for our next topic here, we're going to bring in our statistician, Clinton Fowler, as well. We're going to go through the field and look at where these riders rank based on what we thought we would see from them when the season began. And I'm going to start this exercise right here. Cooper Webb, great season, tied for the points lead. That's obvious now. But don't forget, in the offseason, there were all kinds of questions. People thought that Sexton and Anderson types had leapfrogged ahead of the two-time champ. This was not a guarantee that we'd see this Cooper Webb after a bad year last year. It's been great so far.
And then we got Eli Tomac, who's tied with him in points after 11 rounds. Just came off an incredible win in Seattle, 6 of 11 this year as a 30-year-old. So pretty impressive season for Eli as well.
And for Chase Sexton, if you were to take all the issues that he's had this year, add them all together, it's like a minute's worth of trouble. And if that minute didn't exist, he would maybe be above elite. He could be in his own category. But unfortunately, he is below elite because of that 1 minute of chaos that has taken him out of this thing. And for Justin Barcia, happiest guy in the pits maybe. Every single time you talk to him, he's smiling and he's laughing. He's putting out funny BAM TV videos where he talks about cleaning up the mess. And he's done that. He's been incredible. He's now a podium guy again. And if you actually look at his stats over the past few seasons, top fives every year in points when the season ends.
We got Ken Roxon. That win in Indianapolis has to make the entire season for him. I think the interesting piece, frankly, is he's got the speed. He's been a top 3 qualifier in 5 rounds. I think he's going to be a contender here for the last 6 rounds.
Yeah, and to me, the story is similar with Aaron Plessinger. He didn't get that win at Detroit, but what he proved to himself and the industry is that he can get that win. I think going into this year, a contract year, people were wondering what tier, what level is Plessinger on. Those laps alone at Detroit, I think, say a lot about where his potential is going forward. And then there's another group of riders we want to hit on, these privateers who have really broken through this year. I'm going to start with Josh Cartwright. Got a season best, a 14th a couple weeks ago in Detroit. He's been a main event rider in almost every round this year and working a full-time job. This is one of the feel-good stories of the Supercross paddock.
Similarly, Kevin Moran's. How about that hole shot, guys? Seattle, a privateer bike, pulls a hole shot. Unfortunately, a little mistake causes him to lose a bunch of positions there early on, but incredible season, 9 main events, 6 via the LCQ. It'll be interesting to see if he can get more of those hole shots for the remainder of the year.
And how about the brothers, the Hill brothers? And when I saw that they were racing the 2023 season, I was excited for them as a family to do it together. You kind of wonder, how are they going to do? Well, now we know how they're going to do. They've both been inside the top 10 on the same night. Justin Hill all of a sudden is kind of getting that elite speed back, so he's starting to poke into a new group. And Josh Hill just continuing to race, continuing to be himself, smiling on track walk, making main events. Shout out to the Hill brothers.
Grant Harlan, 21-year-old rookie in the big boy class. Impressive, made 7 of 11 main events this year.
Yeah, he's become a solid main event guy, and that's really what Justin Starling started to do last year. These guys usually get along pretty well off the track, and I feel like Starling is now becoming a bit of a veteran of that group, where a lot of the guys use his guidance to how to make this thing work.
So if we've got those guys who's fun to watch in the kind of privateer class, we've got some that have got some work to do, still working on it, right? Take Jason Anderson. I had him, guys. I picked him at the beginning of the year to win. He's only got 2 podiums this year. I'm looking for him to break through and maybe get a win here in the last 6 rounds.
And for Kyle Chisholm, maybe the off week helps him. I know he was banged up the last few rounds, so he's had a up and down season for his standard, but maybe the off week gives him a chance to freshen up a little bit and be back to being Chiz for the final 6 rounds of the series, because he's had some tough ones this year, a little bit off of his norm, but he's still Chiz.
And then we got Shane McElrath. I expected more from him this year, guys. I expected him to be contending for top 10 finishes, but his best so far has been a 13th in both Daytona and Indy. So it'll be interesting to see what he can pull out in the back half of the season.
That's what we love about watching Supercross every weekend. There are different expectations to all these riders in the field. Some of them just want to make the mains. Some of them have goals to win the mains and everything in between. So it's always fun to look at these riders and their different expectations then see how they measure up each time. Okay, let's finish up 30 board here. The 250 points. We bring this up as not every week. The Lawrence brothers have made mincemeat of the competition points-wise, so not much of a threat here coming into Glendale, Daniel.
No, I think there's still exciting 250 action coming. There's a futures main event coming this weekend, so there's a lot to be excited for. We're just talking about the points itself, and Jet looks pretty indestructible at this point. The points lead's pretty healthy. Looks like he's going to win another one, but at the same time, Jason, there's these Triple Crown things that Jet just can't do, and I'm just going to ask you this. If he wins the first 2 races of the Triple Crown and he's on the gate for the third one, knowing this is the last time I will ever do a 250 Triple Crown again in my life, will he be feeling the pressure because those races have been weird for him? And I can imagine that third one being extra spicy when it comes to pressure.
Yeah, I think it will, and I think it will make a difference. That's the fun thing about Jet. He's almost perfect, but we bring up sometimes that he's the Travis Pastrana of this generation where he's got that little extra something special. I even feel sometimes when Jet messes up, even that is in a pretty spectacular fashion. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 1-1 and then something goes wild in the third one, and we can talk about this. And the other thing, by the way, if it weren't for Triple Crowns, we'd be looking at the Lawrence brothers having won every 250 race this year. So that's the not list points-wise, but they've been pretty darn hot. All 31 Super Motocross World Championship events can be streamed domestically. That's here in the U.S. on Peacock. So to subscribe, go to peacocktv.com/sports/supermotocross.
And for the fans of Super Motocross, they'll have a chance to watch it all year long on Peacock, NBC, and USA Network.
And for the international fans, you can join in the fun by getting the Super Motocross Video Pass. Go to supermotocross.tv to purchase access to every moment of the 2023 Supercross season, the Pro Motocross season, and of course Super Motocross live events in one place. Plus, get over 800 plus hours of archived races.
Okay, don't think that Fowler's Facts hasn't been crunching numbers throughout the break in Supercross. We welcome Clinton Fowler back onto the show. And let's talk SMX playoff scenarios. We've been geeking out actually over all these scenarios. We'll get into them. But first, just refresh the rules to qualify for the playoff in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely, Weege. 2 ways. You can get the automatic bid by being top 20 in points, combined Supercross and Pro Motocross. That's number 1. Number 2, you can finish in combined points between 21st and 30th. Those are your 2 primary ways in. There's one exception. Get a win in either a Supercross main event or Pro Motocross event. That automatically gets you a bid into the LCQs. So there's your 2 ways off the top, Weege.
All right, so I'm looking at history then. I want to know how to get to 20. That's the first thing I'd be looking at if I was one of these riders on the bubble. Clinton, what's our range? Like, give me that range around the 20 spot.
Yeah, so Daniel, the average points required to get in is going to be 142. That's combined. Now, the range is pretty significant. On the high end of it is 180. So that was last year with Garrett Marchbanks. On the low end, you got Josh Hill with 93 back in 2013. So the simplest way to think about 142 points, it's 5 points per race for the entire year. So pretty consistent amount of points you're going to need to be an automatic bid.
Yeah, you mentioned that low end back in 2013 with Josh Hill getting in with just 93 points or 3 points per race. But you think because riders now know how critical these points are and there's a playoff, you think the number is probably going to trend high in 2023 to get in?
Yeah, I think using the 29 race season instead of the 28 race season is actually going to be a good test. Just because if somebody like a Josh Cartwright or Dean Wilson, you name it, whoever's at the edge of top 20 or top 30, I think these guys are going to be pretty motivated to want to show up for a couple of those Pro Motocross races and get some points and make those bids.
Okay, those are key names that you mentioned here. You've shown a chart that shows who's already in and riders who are on the verge are probably going to end up having enough points. Just highlight a few of those names, and a couple stick out to me.
Yeah, so the already in top 7, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, all the way down to Aaron Plessinger, those guys are in. They've got 180 points plus, and I think they're a deadlock. There's an interesting group that sits right on the bubble of what I think will be the top 20. Christian Craig, AC9, Justin Hill, Dean Wilson, those guys are there. Weege in particular, Justin Hill, Dean Wilson, kind of interesting scenarios given their plans for Pro Motocross or lack thereof.
Yeah, they're not planning on racing outdoors, and who would have thought they might not, but they've got to make sure they maximize the points haul in Supercross. So you might see Wilson or Hill, the difference between a 12th and a 16th at any given weekend, and they've been in that range all year. That could be the difference between them being in or out, because I don't think you're going to see them scoring points outdoors. Pretty wild.
All right, Clinton. So I asked you how to get to 20. You said you can get in also by being 21st to 30th. So get me to 30 then. What's the points range looking to get it to 30?
You take a look at the LCQ bubble, right? You look at the current points in the Supercross Championship. You look at 12th through 25th, guys, and I think there's some interesting stuff here. So in particular, 12th through 16th, you've got Joey Savacci all the way down to Shane McElrath. Those guys look like they're good to go or on pace for making the top 30. But there's some unique scenarios there, guys. Like a guy like Joey Savacci or Josh Hill, again, they're in that boat of are they going to race or not in the Pro Motocross series. But guys, the really interesting one for me, and I think maybe the last thing we can hit on here is 19th through 25th right now. Grant Harling sits with 46 points at 19th. If this was the low mark for making the top 30, he'd be the guy in 30th. But there's a lot of guys below. I mean, there's some names there that are doing really well in Supercross this year.
Well, thank you, Clinton. It's time we get into this stuff because every week that we get closer to Ironman, it's going to be that much more important. So it's good to understand it and start looking at where that 20 mark is, where that 30 mark is. So great stuff. And we will see you on Race Day Live this Saturday for another Fowler's Film Room.
Sure will. Looking forward to it, guys.
Time to wrap up this episode of SMX Insider. We're all headed to Glendale here, just outside of Phoenix. I'll be part of Race Day Live. I'll be announcing with the floor. Daniel, you're up in the TV booth. 4:30 Eastern time. Race Day Live begins, and 10 o'clock Eastern. Oh boy, Triple Crown excitement, catch the fever, and a little racing in between. As you mentioned, end of practice should be wild.
Yeah, for all the reasons we've talked about today, Glendale is going to be a perfect relaunch of the series for this final six, this final run we're on. But it all actually starts on Race Day Live. At the very end of the show, we get to see the LCQs. I like when they're put at that part of the format. There's something weird and different about it, and they seem to deliver. So for me, for all the reasons we've talked about and the LCQs on RDL, I can't wait to get to Glendale.
All right. Hey, it's tied in points, everyone. What more could you want? Check it out on Peacock this weekend from Glendale. See you there.